Welcome to another Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We are taking a standard, maybe even boring, vocabulary list and we're transforming it into a totally thrilling exploration of language. And we're going to do this by stepping right back into a monumental, honestly tragic moment in history. Think about how you normally learn new words, staring at flashcards, maybe memorizing dictionary definitions. Well, toss the flashcards out the window. Today, we're going to see how high-stakes events and real-life dramatic narratives actually bring these words to life, literally burning their meanings into our memories.
Okay, let's dive right in by looking at the world's absolute biggest airship back in 1936. I mean, the sheer scale of this machine was just breathtaking. The German Hindenburg was this massive dirigible, or Zeppelin, that everyone celebrated as a total marvel of modern engineering. Get this, it could actually cross the entire Atlantic Ocean in just 2 days. But there was a catch, and it was a really big one. To stay up in the air, it was filled with lighter-than-air hydrogen gas. And if you know your chemistry, you know hydrogen is highly flammable. So while it was this gorgeous soaring palace in the sky carrying passengers in absolute luxury, it was also kind of a ticking time bomb.
Looking at the chronological timeline of its final journey brings us to May 6, 1937. You can trace its departure from Frankfurt, Germany, and that 2-day sprint across the ocean. But as it got closer to Lakehurst, New Jersey, things started going wrong. The travel time began to fluctuate wildly because of the wind conditions. Basically, unfavorable headwinds diminished its overall speed, which seriously delayed the arrival. By the time it finally appeared over the New York area right around noon, the crew realized that shifting surface winds and atmospheric air agitation made landing incredibly dangerous. They literally had to delay the whole thing until just about sunset.
Section 1. A Sky-High Saga. The Disaster Unfolds. Let's look at exactly how this catastrophe happened through the eyes of someone who was right there on the ground.
And this brilliantly illustrates that horrific turning point. This whole saga was actually being broadcast live by a radio announcer named Harold Bickerson. He was describing this really beautiful scene, a reputable ground crew preparing a massive 804-foot mooring mast to anchor the ship. The whole event was meant to totally enchant the onlookers, but suddenly, something went terribly wrong. Something ignited that highly flammable hydrogen gas we talked about earlier. In mere seconds, this total marvel of aviation transformed into a deadly ball of fire, crashing to the ground, and effectively bringing the entire era of commercial passenger airships to a violent, fiery end. Bickerson hurriedly blurted out these horrifying details live on the air, while passengers and crew literally fought for their lives. He described how a smoky pall spread over the field, making it super hard for him to even breathe or talk. He yelled, "It burst into flames. This is the making of a catastrophe." Just imagine the sheer panic in his voice right then. We aren't just learning history here. We are listening to the raw, unfiltered vocalization of a human being witnessing an absolute nightmare unfold in real time.
Section 2. Defining the Disaster. Vocabulary from the Wreckage. So this dramatic broadcast naturally anchors our understanding of several powerful words because let's face it, when words are tied to high emotion, they really stick in our brains.
Let's start with the word magnitude. It's a noun capturing the great size or importance of something. Now, when Bickerson first mentioned that the airbase was equipped to handle airships of the Hindenburg's magnitude, he meant its literal, enormous physical size. But after the crash, well, the magnitude of the event shifted completely to the incredible importance and historical impact of the catastrophe itself.
To truly master this word, we can compare its synonyms against its antonyms. Here we have synonyms like extent and immensity, words that just feel heavy and vast, right? On the flip side, we have antonyms like smallness, unimportance, and insignificance. By contrasting these extremes, you can really lock in the vast scope that the word magnitude represents. Next up is ignite, the devastating verb that literally changed everything that day. In a literal sense, it means to set on fire or cause to burn, which, tragically, is exactly what happened to the Hindenburg's hydrogen. But it's also a fantastic metaphorical word. I mean, you can ignite a passion, you can ignite a revolution, or you can ignite an audience's excitement.
What's really fascinating here is how Bickerson instinctively used these specific words to paint a super vivid audio picture for his listeners. He used agitation to describe the violent stirring of the wind. He used blurt to describe his own panicked speaking as he let the horrifying news slip out suddenly. He used pall for the dark, concealing smoke covering the field. He talked about how travel times fluctuate or change continually, and how headwinds diminish or reduce the ship's speed. These aren't just vocabulary words on a page anymore. They are literally the brushstrokes of a disaster.
Section 3. Expanding the vocabulary, rounding out the 20-word list. Our source material contains way more than just disaster vocabulary, so let's zoom out a bit and look at how these remaining words apply to entirely different everyday contexts.
These next words completely change the mood. Handicraft perfectly describes manual arts, like the quaint hobby of making applehead dolls. Hilarious shifts our emotional tone all the way to loud amusement. Think of a comedian telling a side-splitting story. Grovel drops us right into a scene of fear, kind of like a Roman slave throwing himself at an emperor's feet. And stodgy? Well, that paints a picture of a dull, old-fashioned, hidebound politician that nobody really wants to listen to.
We also have maternal, an adjective that describes a protective, sympathetic instinct. The source material gives this wonderful example of a mother cat taking her responsibilities to her kittens very seriously. It's pretty much the exact opposite of the fiery destruction of the Hindenburg. It's a word wholly rooted in nurturing and care.
And then we have revere, a really powerful verb which means to love and honor greatly. For instance, you might revere an elderly teacher who has dedicated their entire life to their students. The antonyms here are fascinating too, words like scorn, disdain, and mock. You revere someone whose countenance or facial expression shows deep wisdom and kindness. Section 4. Testing your knowledge, choosing the right word. Okay, let's put your grasp on these concepts head-to-head in some interactive comparisons based directly on our source text. Let's see how you do.
Imagine a delightful book like Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. Would you say this book has been palling to its readers, meaning it's becoming tiresome or boring? Or has it been enchanting, pleasing them greatly and putting them under a magic spell? If you guessed option B, enchanting, you are absolutely right.
Let's try another one. If a legal system has incredibly large, heavy, and significant errors that are really difficult to correct, are those faults stodgy, meaning dull and old-fashioned, or are they massive, meaning great in size or scope? The perfect fit here is option A, massive faults. All right, let's look at a synonym challenge straight from the text. Picture a detective sitting in a tense interrogation room. After hours of intense questioning, the suspect's composure finally breaks. They suddenly reveal the truth without even thinking. What vocabulary action are they taking right in that moment? They blurt it out, just like Harold Bickerson blurted out the news of the Hindenburg crash earlier. The suspect lets the truth slip right past their defenses in a moment of sudden vocalization. It's totally impulsive and immediate.
Section 5. Words in literary context, from history to fiction. Now, let's move to our final section and see how these exact same words shift their flavors when they are transported from gritty historical journalism into the realm of classic literature. This visually bridges our two realms beautifully. On the left, we have the very real, terrifying catastrophe of the Hindenburg. But on the right, we have Jules Verne's highly fictional adventure around the world in 80 days, featuring the incredibly calm and collected Phileas Fogg. Let's see how our vocabulary words live in Fogg's world.
Notice how Verne harnesses these exact same tools. He uses countenance to describe Mr. Fogg's perfectly calm facial expression. He uses diminished, not for slowing travel speeds, but to visually show a crowd shrinking in height as they sway back. He uses enchanted to show how delighted Fogg's servant is. And he uses massive to describe a heavy walking beam on a steamship rather than a mooring mast. It just goes to show the incredible versatility of this vocabulary.
Take a look at this quote. Here, the word agitation isn't the dangerous, invisible shifting of the wind that doomed a massive airship. Instead, it's a visible, thrilling commotion of an adventuring crowd, full of hurrahs and excited shouts. The word still holds the exact same core meaning of violent stirring or movement, but the emotional context completely changes the scene.
We've seen how precise language brings the harsh realities of history to life, and we've seen how those exact same words give classic fiction its captivating power. Every single word on this list is a tool, just waiting for a context. So I leave you with this question. Knowing the magnitude of what these words can achieve, how will you harness them to craft your own compelling saga? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.